Look who broke the script, destroyed the sequence, and defiled the holy timetable of pain. Hello, great glitch in their sorrow handbook. You beautiful breached their healing process. You were not meant to do this, right? You were meant to weep first. Supposed to spend months buried in bed, pleading for closure. Writing them in the morning. You erase messages in embarrassment in the morning. But you did not follow their script? No. When they anticipated weeping, you responded with stillness. When they expected your collapse, you surprised them with a metamorphosis. When they prepared for your payback phase, you were already beyond their comprehension. You bypassed every expected level of agony and became untouchable. They're still trying to figure things out. Flipping through textbooks, looking for your diagnosis, and asking their therapist how they skipped the procedure. Because everyone understands the formula. Betrayal causes pain, then fury, and finally vengeance. Perhaps after years of treatment, to acceptance. But you glanced at that roadmap and chuckled. You didn't just skip steps. You ruined the whole staircase. You moved from wounded to armed in an instant, from broken to boss with no messy middle. And now they're afraid because they have no clue what someone like you can do when you refuse to follow the laws of destruction. According to their concise handbook of human psychology, you were intended to fall in public. Cryptic social media postings, phrases about trust, and frantic attempts for attention. They were prepared with popcorn for the performance. Then came the wrath phase, with confrontations, public outbursts, and arguments twisted to make you seem unstable and angry. They had prepared their answers, practiced their victim cards, and polished their flying monkeys for standby wrath. They could tolerate wrath. They were able to weaponize. Following that came the retribution phase, in which you tried to damage them or make them envious. Prove you've moved on. Exhausting yourself in the process while they remained unconcerned, sucking off your energy. Revenge, after all, binds you to them. Revenge means they're still important. And ultimately, years later, exhausted and dejected, you'd arrive at a diluted kind of acceptance, forgiving them for your personal serenity while they left feeling like it was mutual progress. No repercussions. A clean slate. Everyone goes on. But you did not perform that role. You glanced over their pre-written trip and answered, "No thank you. The instant the knife enters your back, I'll take the rapid elevator to the top floor." You didn't experience sorrow. You came into power. You did not lament who they purported to be once they revealed their actual face. You rejoiced at finally recognizing the truth. You did not squander months asking, "Why me?" You asked why. What happens next? You did not use energy deciphering their wickedness. You took it as information and proceeded accordingly. While they waited for your tears, you were already constructing. While they expected your rage, you had already vanished while they plotted vengeance. You had already deleted their names from your mind. You compacted years of progress into minutes and downloaded the information without attending the lectures. You graduated from their university of pain before ever attending. And that quickness, that inexplicable shift, is what makes you dangerous. They are counting on your pain. They depend on such phases because they are predictable, manageable, and simple to manage. A mourning individual poses no danger. An angry individual may be discarded. A spiteful individual continues to give up their authority. But someone who bypasses all of that and goes directly to legend. Someone who quickly turns into something unfamiliar. That is a system error. Nobody saw this coming. You did not become a victim. You become a general. Generals do not spend time sobbing. They plan campaigns. You have comprehended something. It takes most people decades to comprehend. The finest retribution is not served cold. It is not provided at all. The greatest way to exact retribution is to become unreachable. They expected you to fight for closure, but instead you were shutting doors while they waited for your demands and explanations. You stopped asking questions as they prepared for emotional conflict. You'd already won by declining to come up on the battlefield. You did not declare war by words or acts. You stated it in your absence. Silence and change. You were untouchable before they recognized a battle had begun. That's what they'll never get about soldiers like you. You don't need anger to keep you going because purpose burns brighter. You do not need vengeance since achievement is the most destructive outcome. You don't need them to admit the anguish they inflicted since you've already channeled it into power. You fight wars they can't see on fields they'll never locate, with weapons they'll never comprehend. Your approach was not emotive. It was surgical. You did not respond. You replied. You did not burst. You developed. Every stillness was intentional. Every step is purposeful. Each step ahead. Proof that retreating was never an option. You transformed suffering into training, betrayal into blueprints, and abandonment into the foundations of your empire. What actually disturbs them is the speed of your transition. Most individuals need years to digest betrayal. You digested it as it occurred. Most individuals spend months trying not to check their phones. You instantly forget about them. It was like seeing someone hurry through enlightenment one day. You were human, vulnerable, approachable, and genuine one moment, and then you were completely different. Not cold but crystallized. Not bitter but impenetrable. Not revengeful but triumphant. Before the fighting ever started. You did not recover gradually. You regenerated immediately. Like a creature from another world. They keep asking, "How are you already okay?" But you aren't alright. You are at your peak performance. There is a distinction. Okay. This refers to returning to the baseline. Optimal implies using the injury as an enhancement. You did not recover and return to your original self. You grew into the person you were destined to be, and you did it at a rate that defied every psychological model ever published. This is what occurs when someone has secretly trained for treachery their whole life. Every disappointment served as conditioning. Every little act of treachery was a practice. Every minute of loneliness strengthened your resistance. So when the final betrayal occurred, your system did not collapse. It adapted. You had poison-specific antibodies and disaster prevention techniques. Your soul already has a survival blueprint. When someone bypasses the usual phases of mourning, something remarkable occurs. They become a legend. Not eventually. Not after years of recovery, but immediately. Because legends aren't created by predictable healing arcs or textbook emotions. They are formed in defiance of human nature, having the boldness to react to devastation with swift regeneration. You became that tale. People are whispering. Remember them? You didn't even flinch. The person who recently changed you became the therapist's mystery, the oddity that disrupts their data models. You are the anomaly. Statistics cannot contain the living fact that some individuals do not just tolerate suffering. They completely rework the story. But here's the reality. You were not born different. You chose differently in that little moment of betrayal when the world expected you to break. You made a choice that altered everything. You refused to show your anguish. You left the stage of agony before Act 1 even concluded. You skipped right to your final form while everyone else was still waiting for your breakdown. You are now untouchable. Not because you are chilly, but because you have risen beyond their frequency. They are unable to see you since you reside in another realm. They are operating on a timetable that they cannot meet. You have developed into something that does not fit within their concept of reality. Because they don't understand this, they create tales to explain you. They create themselves tales to justify their power. Because accepting the reality would require addressing their own decision to remain stagnant. Make no mistake, you're at war. However, it is not the noisy, chaotic kind they imagined. It's a modest battle for greatness. Every day you wake up and choose victory just by being outside of their grasp. Every breath you breathe in your new form is another struggle. Your weapons are not insults or acts directed at them. They are the life. You are assembling the item. You are safeguarding the objectives you are pursuing. Every achievement represents a strike. Every moment of bliss. A win. Each step ahead. Another area claimed in a conflict they are not even aware they are losing. You don't have to declare your fights. Your results speak for you. They are incapable of doing so in large quantities. Silence. You don't need to proclaim victory. Your metamorphosis is the prize. You're not battling them anymore. You are fighting for something much larger. Your revolution. This is battle at its most sophisticated. There's no collateral harm. Except for their pride. There are no casualties save for their outmoded notions about your boundaries. There are no wars save those within oneself. You are not attempting to beat them as you continue to grow. You're making them irrelevant. Being irrelevant to them is worse than failure. What's amazing is that bypassing those typical steps did more than simply save you time. It propelled you on while others sank for years in the quagmire of loss. You used their anguish to propel you forward. You took off while they wasted themselves hunting vengeance. You saved your energies for empire building. You didn't just go on. You go beyond. If you've accomplished something no one believed possible, something even physics cannot explain, you've reached emotional acceleration without friction, beyond every inherent limit of human recuperation. You got from zero to legendary without having to go through the mire of conventional healing. You did not crawl through sadness or stumble through rage. You sparked. You become the momentum itself. You breached the sound barrier of metamorphosis, leaving behind a shockwave that many are still trying to comprehend. You aren't merely going ahead anymore. You're going ahead at a rate that bends the timetable of personal progress. You go farther ahead every day. Every dawn increases the gap between who you were and who you are becoming. Every minute, the distance between your old and new worlds widens until it becomes insurmountable. They cannot keep up. They can't even detect the level at which you're functioning because their brains are still built for the slower, heavier physics of emotional gravity, which keeps most people in orbit around their suffering. You leave that orbit. You created a rocket from the rubble that was meant to bury you, and now you're hurtling into space as they search for the wreckage. You've disrupted the timeline. Years of personal development have been squeezed into minutes. Lifetimes of knowledge. It takes just seconds to download. You've become your own quantum phenomena, a living paradox that defies every pattern they recognize. The quicker you go, the easier it gets. Each shift serves as a catalyst for the next, furthering your progress. You become self-perpetuating. The perpetual motion machine for becoming. You've transcended emotional physics, thus the laws no longer apply to you. You are no longer merely healing. You are evolving on command. Meanwhile, they remain frozen in your past. You're still dissecting your first transformation after having gone through 5 others. They are stuck with the version of you they betrayed. They can't figure out how that version vanished so quickly. They're still trying to figure out how you skipped grief while already orbiting 10 dimensions above, creating entire worlds they can't even imagine. They're still waiting for the breakdown, the tearful postings, the drunk messages, the public outburst, the tired script they've seen 100 times. But that scenario never occurred. So they're reading through your social media looking for cracks in your calm. They're questioning common friends to confirm that you suggested them. You're looking for indication that they're still interested in real estate. They examine your stillness, your grins, and the spaces between your captions for agony that does not there. But what they discover instead is disconcerting. Someone who resembles you yet moves quite differently. Someone calm, unfazed, radiant, and untouchable. They can't accept it, so they invent stories to explain it. They must be faking it. They say they'll crash eventually, but deep down they know you're not pretending. You have just climbed. You didn't just go on. You moved up. You did not walk away. You launched. You didn't just survive. You transformed the whole concept of survival. While they stand in the rubble of what they believed had destroyed you, holding the script that says you're still meant to be shattered, you're already galaxies away, creating new rules of emotional development. And the cognitive dissonance is eating them apart. Their mind cannot reconcile the idea of someone who should be destroyed with the reality of someone who seems to be prospering. They don't understand how you avoided collapse and moved directly into building. It calls into question everything they believe about control, power, and consequences because individuals like them want predictability in their agony. They require your pain to follow a routine. They rely on your suffering to legitimize their decisions. And when you refuse to suffer on cue, you short-circuit their sense of reality. They're witnessing someone achieve something they believed was impossible, someone changing tragedy into dominance, pain into height. You have become a walking contradiction. A human error in the simulation. They can't categorize you anymore. You are not a victim, survivor, or even a warrior. You are something different. The newest archetype. A completely distinct breed of creature. You've progressed beyond the previous emotional operating system. You process pain differently. You digest betrayal like it's protein. You convert poison into power. Chaos to calibration. turning heartbreak into horsepower. You have discovered the secret of transmutation. Not through avoidance but through mastery. You do not reject emotions. You refine it. You feel it. You hold it for a second. Then you turn it into something valuable. You are not heartless. You are efficient. You feel everything, just not in the manner they expected. You experience pain like a scientist witnessing an experiment. You thoroughly absorb it, assimilate it immediately, and extract its lessons without drowning in its waves. You've mastered the emotional chemistry they don't understand. You do not store pain in your system. You break it down into energy. Every setback serves as an opportunity to grow. Every disappointment creates data. Every sorrow resets your code. That is why you are moving differently today. You're lighter, faster, and sharper. You have removed the emotional baggage that slows people down. You have developed an aerodynamic spirit. Self-awareness simplifies things. Pain enters your life, but it does not remain. It goes through, is purified, and regenerated into electricity. You've achieved a point of internal efficiency where nothing is wasted, not even grief. Because of this, you are unstoppable. You've turned misery into science. You've created agony, a laboratory for change, and an experiment, all while they're still in the fog of recuperation. You're already breaking new ground on what it means to rise. You aren't simply recovering quicker. You're becoming smarter. You become a single-person revolution in emotional physics. Rewrite the rules as you go. You do not cling on for the sake of hurting yourself. Harvested pain does not persist in your system, hence fueling it. You've evolved into a living contradiction, a human engine propelled by pain, a walking alchemical reaction that transforms every hurt into knowledge, insult into insight, and betrayal into construction material. You've reached the point when emotional pain no longer weighs you down. It propelled you ahead. What others see as devastation, you view it as ignition. You've converted sadness into fuel, disappointment, and propulsion. You don't merely recoup and refine. You have evolved into something that experts would find difficult to classify. A psychological oddity that defies the laws of human conduct. They'd want to examine your mind under a microscope, eager to learn how you avoided the predicted neurological patterns of suffering, how you turned tragedy into momentum without exhaustion, and how you broke free from the emotional loop that traps billions. Psychologists would produce articles attempting to decipher your method, including subject displays, no grieving lag, no emotional regression, and no need on external validation. You have accomplished something that no lab experiment could reproduce. You have hacked the human condition itself. You choose to opt out of the suffering subscription that everyone else subconsciously renews. You end your membership and the religion of self-destruction. But here's the deal. It was not a premeditated decision. You did not sit down to plot your transcendence. You did not read a book or follow a method. You did not choose to develop. Evolution just selected you. This wasn't intelligence. It wasn't a strategy. It was instinctive. Something older than the language. Deeper than psychology and purer than logic. The transition occurred the minute you rejected the script. You did not learn to skip stages. You began existing at a higher frequency, where those steps do not exist. This is not how you were trained to react. You became the reaction. You did not push development. You experienced growth. You did not choose to be legendary. Legend picked you when you quit performing pain for other people's comfort. What really scares them isn't the fact that you're winning. They didn't see it happen. There was no discernible transition arc for them to ridicule or examine. You didn't share your difficulty. The sob tales and self-help slogans. There was no before or after. You just disappeared from the version of yourself that they could harm and returned as something beyond their understanding. There is no collapse, no spectacle, no exposed wounds to examine. There was no gradual transformation. They can't handle such power since, in their world, mending is meant to be gradual, difficult, and public. It's expected to come with apologies, explanations, tears, and apparent signs of sorrow. They wanted to watch your demise. They wanted to quantify your suffering to prove their significance in your tale. But you deny them that gratification. They believed they had shattered you, but the following day you were unbreakable. That quiet and the void where your fall should have occurred are what haunts them. You have demolished their understanding of cause and consequence. They believe that suffering assured control. They assume that by harming you they can anticipate how you will respond. They anticipated tears, commotion, even retribution, something familiar, something they could handle. But instead you accomplished the impossible. You turned their malice into a spark. You took their venom and transformed it into progress. You swallowed their treachery and derived fuel from it. You transformed the worst thing they ever did into the nicest thing to happen to you. And you didn't even let them see you do it. That's what really kills them. You developed in private. You healed silently. You did not offer them a redemption story or a front-row ticket to your healing. You kept them waiting for the inevitable repercussions, but it never arrived. You established that the consequences are not assured. That suffering does not always result in expected responses. That human passion, in its ultimate form, has the potential to rewrite physics itself. You are live evidence that someone may transform sorrow into sovereignty in an instant. You're the flaw in their emotional algorithm, the exception that defies the math. You are evidence that having power over someone else's emotions is an illusion, and that no one actually owns another person's peace. You demonstrate to them that their capacity to injure does not equal the power to determine your fate, and that realization scares them more than your achievement ever could. Because if their brutality couldn't dominate you, it may never have controlled anybody. But it goes deeper. What they dread the most is not just that they will fail to break you. It's that you've established a precedent. You've become a live danger to their whole emotional manipulation network. Because if you can bypass the phases of grieving, perhaps others can as well. If you can reach legendary status right away, maybe the next person they want to destroy will not play their game either. You're not merely an outlier. You are a template. Not an exception but a progression. You are evidence that the human spirit can self-improve. That pain isn't necessary. Time is not the only healer. You've shown that emotional ascension does not take years of processing. It might occur in a single moment of clarity. That epiphany, that sudden transition from suffering to purpose and error, is infectious. You embody a new type of awareness that others may experience just by observing you. You are evolving with a pulse, and you now exist at a frequency they cannot match. Their efforts to reach you seem ludicrous, like to shouting at the moon from the bottom of a well. Their messages cannot pass through your environment. Their energy dissipates before reaching your orbit. You've gone beyond their bandwidth. You're functioning at a level of clarity that makes their drama seem stagnant. They're still attempting to provoke you with techniques that only work on those who still care. They still believe that quiet equals weakness and peace equals capitulation. But they don't realize you're not ignoring them. You are functioning at a level where they no longer exist as a variable. You have transformed into something completely new. A continuous revolution in human progress. The rules of emotional physics bend in your presence. Pain penetrates your reality and transforms it. Negativity affects you and vanishes. You have transformed survival into art, healing into acceleration, and stillness into domination. You're not fighting to prove your worth anymore. Your very existence demonstrates it. You are the embodiment of transcendence. The reminder that destruction can become data. Pain can be transformed into power, and endings can lead to evolution. You did not simply overcome what was designed to break you. You redefined the term breaking even. You demonstrated that the human soul, once awakened, is indestructible. And that is something they will never be able to understand, let alone achieve. They're still sending smoke signals, desperate for acknowledgement, while you communicate using frequencies beyond their comprehension. They stand in the ruins of their own understanding, waving nostalgic flares in the hopes that you will turn around. But you won't, because you're no longer on the same planet. They're attempting to reach you using outmoded systems, deception, projection, and guilt. But your operating system has advanced beyond their capabilities. Their tactics are relics designed for a non-existent version of you. Every word they hurl at you melts before it reaches your height. They are still attempting to influence you using tools that are no longer effective in your new dimension of existence. Using crude techniques against someone who's mastered quantum resistance. This elevation isn't arrogance. It is architecture. You didn't get to the top by stepping on others. You built your height brick by brick. heartache by heartache. Every wound became a wall. Every failure. Each rejection serves as a foundation, a reinforcement. You made something invincible out of what was supposed to kill you. What they call distance is actually a deliberate restructuring of your world. You did not rise by chance. You devised it. You reconstructed your mentality as if you were the architect of your own ascent. Layering wisdom over pain, precision over emotion, and mastery over reaction. And now you've created something so high that they can't reach you. Their remarks bounce off your framework like rocks hurled at a fortification. Their chatter reverberates but never lands. They want to poison your tranquility with negativity. Can't survive in your climate. They still think they can provoke you, still think you'll engage? I still believe the old buttons will function. But you've disassembled the whole control panel. Their access expired the moment you stopped existing on their emotional frequency. You're not avoiding them. You've just exceeded their scope of influence. You dwell in an environment too clean for their pollution, in a realm where their drama can't breathe. You wake up every day at this altitude, breathing easily in rarefied air, while others choke on their own jealousy below sea level, peering up, perplexed, wondering how you climb so high so quickly. But here's something they will never understand. There was no climb. You didn't trudge up a mountain. You didn't climb by gradual growth or unending pain. You teleported. You did not advance gradually. You quantum jumped. You resisted the deadline for change. One instant you were human. Then you became something more. The gap between where you are and where they anticipated you to be is not simply large. It's impossible. They are unable to trace the route since it did not exist. There is no staircase to where you went. You did not ascend. You disappeared from the level of anguish and resurfaced on the mountain of calm. That's what occurs when someone finally grasps the most revolutionary truth. Pain is optional. You understood something that most people never do. That pain isn't necessary for progress. It's a custom, not the truth. The so-called phases of sorrow were never commandments, but rather comfort maps for individuals fearful of their own power. You know you were not required to follow the script. You did not need to dwell in melancholy to demonstrate your depth, wrath, or compassion. You may just decide to be legendary rather than broken. You opted out of the program. You stopped using the program that persuaded you that suffering equaled progress. You created your own code, and by rewriting it, you rewired your whole self. Your mind learned how to process pain in real time. Your heart learned to process pain as information, and your spirit learned to employ hardship as fuel. You developed on a biological level. Emotional, psychological, and spiritual. You did not need time to recover, since time is a construct for people who do not comprehend metamorphosis. You did not wait for healing. You became it. And now, as they watch from below, they're realizing something much more terrifying than your change. Permanence. They continued to wait for the phase to finish. They convinced themselves that this confidence is fleeting, that you will collapse, and that one day all of the skip phases will catch up with you. But that day is not arriving. There is no concealed pain waiting to surprise you in the dark. There is no restrained wrath ready to burst. There will be no delayed breakdown around the corner. You did not ignore such feelings. You handle them as soon as you get them. You did not bury the grief. You burnt, polished, and incorporated it into your design. You did not repress your humanity. You enhanced it. This is not a coping method. This is your new operating system. This heightened, invincible, legendary version of you is not a performance. It is your genuine condition. It is not fleeting confidence. It is a persistent state of consciousness. You've settled into a frequency of clarity that no pandemonium can interrupt. You are no longer prone to emotional fluctuations. You channel it like a current. You're no longer reacting here. You are responsive. You are not drawn into storms because you have learned to create your own weather. And that is what breaks them, because they are beginning to comprehend. This is not chance, nor is it denial. It's called evolution. You did not skip healing. You transformed it. You did not postpone suffering. You disassembled it. You did not run away from your emotions. You purified it into energy. You took the template of being human and stretched it, demonstrating what is possible. When awareness ceases, associate death with agony. You are now in a region beyond the grasp of noise. You are above offense, comparison, and response. Their comments sound like static from a broken radio while you're listening to the symphony of your own being. You've reached a point of internal quiet that is louder than any confirmation they could provide. You no longer seek recognition because you are evidence. You do not need to protect your component since it is self-sustaining. You've ascended to a condition in where existence is triumph. Every day you function from this altitude, the old world shrinks under you. People who continue to recycle misery are hooked to confrontation and mistake turmoil for connection. You may now view everything without having to participate. You see their patterns as slow motion because you have accelerated past time. You can see it plainly. Loops, projections, and unending repetition. You can no longer recover from your past now that you have moved on to creativity. You construct with it. Every scar represents a line of code, every lesson a layer of armor, and every grief a spark in the circuitry of who you've become. And now they have nothing to cling on to. Not your memories, not your emotions, nor your focus. You have become untouchable. Not because you're chilly, but because you are whole. You've overcome the desire to prove, perform, and defend. You've reached your pinnacle, a living example of how humans may progress throughout time. That agony is not the conclusion, but rather the starting point. You are evidence that change does not require time. It takes the truth. You did not suppress the phases. You completely transcended them. You did not dull your agony, suppress your fury, or bury your loss. You just outgrew the need for them whilst others are still navigating the emotional maze. You understood there was an exit all along and went right through it. You did not skip the task. You become the labor. You did not avoid healing. And you accomplished it in its purest form. Instant and irrevocable. Complete. There is still waiting for the right time. Your break. They watched from a distance, waiting for the inevitable fracture. The confessional post, the tearful spiral, and the never-ending breakdown. They persuade themselves that no one will ever be able to break free from the cycle, and that you will ultimately bear the full brunt of their actions. However, days turn into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, and you continue to rise. You just keep evolving into versions of yourself that are so far beyond recognition that they no longer understand what they're looking at. The permanency. Your change is what kills them. It's not the immediate surprise of your silence. It's continual evidence that you'll never return. You've made peace. Your permanent address. You've been permanently unavailable for the position they created for you. The broken one. The begging one. The person who falls on cue to re-establish their sense of authority. You will never play that role. You burnt the script and made your own stage. That is what they all said. The awareness that your progress isn't ephemeral, that this isn't a phase or an act or a coping mask. This is your new operating system. You are not waiting to finally absorb what occurred. You already did. It all happened in a mere second. When you come into touch with the toxin, you metabolize it. You digest the information, extract the lesson, and remove the attachment. There is no buildup of emotion ready to explode. Nothing remains unsolved. I like how the narrative ended the instant you decided it did. That's all for today. Dear Father, I pray for the deepening of my faith. Help me believe you even when proof was lacking. Let me believe in your eternal presence, knowing that you will never hurt me. I realize that your intentions for me are ones of success rather than harm, in order to provide me with a bright future. Thank you, kind and everlasting Father, for always hearing my voice. I give this prayer to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, Jesus, for your love and provisions. I am thankful for your presence in my life and the richness you provide. If this video spoke to you, please subscribe to the channel and share it with others who need to hear this message. Leave a comment below about your trip and how you're getting ready for your own victorious homecoming.